So I think we have another question coming up.
That's right. This is another chance for you to use the Turning Point app on your device. We are going to shift gears and move towards the topic of engagement. And so take a look at this question. When were you most engaged with an online experience? And in a minute, you will have the poll available on your device. All right, it should be there now. And as we're waiting for the results to come in, if you have any questions about what you're seeing on the screen and what we are discussing, please feel free to type them in the chat. In that way, we'll try to address them there. And then at the end of the session, we can also address any questions that you have in the chat window. All right. And let us see what the results of the poll shape to be. All right. Aha. It looks like we have some convergence around answer C and answer D, and then a few folks have selected A and B as well. And we wanted to share with you that based on our experience, online learners are really engaged when they're involved in solving problems that were posed by instructors and when they were working together to prepare a presentation with a small team. In fact, in our experience, we found that online, learners need to be doing things while they're learning. The practice of offering a lecture does not seem to be enough to keep them away from the distractions at home and the distractions on their mobile phones. And so we try to place as many engaging learning activities as we can in order to keep the attention and learning engagement of the learners. So we're going to go through several ideas that you can use in synchronous and also asynchronous learning events. As you're getting ready to start your synchronous learning event, we'd like to encourage you to plan for tech issues at the start of every session. Our students have different technology skills, they have different technology capabilities, and so setting aside 5 to 10 minutes at the start of every session to help everyone get to the same location and understand how to use the software is going to make for a much more enjoyable experience. And then the tech issues are going to resolve themselves over time as the students become more and more comfortable with the technology tools that they're using. Now, after you have taken care of any tech issues, we'd like to suggest to you to engage the learners in some icebreaker activities that will help them become familiar with the communication environment in your synchronous tool. And there are many, many icebreaker activities out there. We wanted to suggest 3 in particular. The first one is called the favorite thing, and it is exactly what it sounds. We can simply ask our students to tell us what is their favorite thing about the course that we're studying so far. If you wanted to establish a little bit more personal familiarity with your students, you can ask them to take a picture of their shoes and then upload it into the shared space and then explain to everyone why they chose that particular pair of shoes. That's a very safe insight into who your students are and what hobbies perhaps they're engaging with. And the last icebreaker activity we wanted to recommend is called Aliens Have Landed. And in this activity, we tell our learners that aliens have landed and they are particularly interested learning the content in our course. However, they do not speak English. So we ask our learners to go online and find images that they think represent the content of the course. And then we have a discussion with everyone where people are voting which of the images will be displayed as our 5 images communicating to the aliens. So let's try an icebreaker activity right now. In the chat, please tell us what is your favorite topic when you're teaching your meteorology courses. Something that makes you very passionate and that you enjoy a great deal. So go ahead and open the chat box and then tell us what you're thinking. Excellent. Thank you for sharing these topics. They are fascinating, and we can completely understand why you feel so passionate about them. Very good. All right. Now, we also wanted to show you capabilities that are related to doing analysis exercises in your synchronous sessions. And for this, I will turn the floor over to Brian, and we'll need to switch our screens for a moment. So bear with us for a second.
So I hope everyone can hear me now. Let me make sure I've got everything available. Excellent. Okay. So one of the things that we're going to start trying to do is do some analysis exercises together. It sounds like it might not be the easiest thing to do in an online lesson, but we can do it, and we can do it through multiple different tools that we have. The first one I want to do is show you how to do it via Zoom. In your view options bar at the top, if you mouse over the view options, click on it, and drop down to where the annotate button is, you should get a bar that looks like what you're seeing on this slide. It'll give you the option to be able to make text boxes, draw in different types of ways, give you arrows, erasers, different sort of stamps that you can do. Go ahead and annotate on my screen. We'll do an exercise here in just a second that'll show you a little more possibility of how this is going to work. And you'll notice when I move to the next slide, even though you've been annotating on what seems like maybe this slide, you're actually annotating on the screen. So when I move to the next slide, all of those annotations are still there. I have the ability to remove all of the annotations that you have drawn, any annotations that I have drawn, or all of the annotations. And I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to remove all the annotations, and we're going to start an exercise here. All of the drawings have now been removed. This is an image from a JPSS satellite, and it has been colorized in many different ways. I won't tell you how it has been colorized. It is an RGB image, and my question for you is to outline an area that you believe is snow on the ground. Go ahead and take the time to do that. You can either outline it with a drawing, you could add an arrow and say this is it, or you could add a little check mark. Go ahead and annotate on this screen what you think is snow on the ground. We're getting some answers coming in. We've got some good drawings. We've got arrows coming in. This is great. Keep them coming. Multiple arrows building up. Ooh, polygons. Very nice. I know I haven't discussed exactly what this RGB image is. My objective is to just mostly show you that you can annotate on the screen and it can become relatively clear what everyone is seeing and what everyone's thoughts are. And aside from adding the arrow with your name on it, there is some anonymity behind this. No one knows that you've drawn in a certain spot. What I can then do is add my own drawing on here. to tell you where I think the correct answer is. And I will make my pen nice and wide, and I'll make it orange because no one else has chosen orange at this point. So here we go, annotating on screen. You may not see it right away, but you will see it after I end up letting go of the mouse. There's part of it. Other parts going up here, and depending on how we want to do the outline, everything to the left of that line, excluding some of these areas here. We don't need to cover the whole entire map. That's what I'll give you right now. Everything to the left of that is actually snow on the ground, but some of it is covered by clouds. So you've seen that we can give an example for you to do. You can draw easily. Hopefully the annotation tools have been relatively easy for you to use, relatively intuitive, as multiple people were choosing different types of annotation styles. What we can then do is I'm going to clear all these annotations, and we're going to move on to a different type of annotation, which might be happening in an asynchronous type event. So here go all your drawings, and we'll move on to the next slide. On this slide, what we're here to talk about is actually asynchronous analysis exercises. This can be used in a synchronous situation, but it's also useful in an asynchronous situation. The link that is here on screen will also be available in the chat window for you. This is a real-time drawing tool that we at COMET have made, and we're making available to you so you can hopefully use this with your students. What I'd like you to do is click on that link, make sure you pull up that tab in a new browser window, and we'll start working through that together. I'll switch over to my, hopefully exit out, there we go. Here's my drawing tool. This is what you should see as well right now. And Tony's going to put another link into the chat window, which will also be a URL that I'd like you to go to. That other URL to go to is this other tab here. It's called NextRad Level 3 File. It's a MetPy notebook in Python. If you scroll down to the bottom of this, you'll find that there's a 2-panel image. I want you to right-click on that 2-panel image and click on Copy Image Address. Once you've copied that image address, if you go back to the real-time drawing tool that we originally linked you to, and paste that URL into the image URL box and click the Load Image button, you will see that that image gets immediately loaded into our drawing tool area. This is a canvas that anyone can draw on in their own personal window. This isn't something that is shared. This is your drawing only. What you can do right now is you can select different pen sizes. You can select an eraser, and you can draw in whatever color is available here in this rainbow, as well as black and white. We also have undo and redo buttons. What I'll ask you to do right now is to highlight the area where you see a TVS, a tornado vortex signature. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. It's not too big of a deal. It's just to show you that we can annotate in different areas of these images. The undo and redo button are available if you need them. If you wanted to draw something bigger, just to give you an idea of some other possible things, if you wanted to draw a dashed line, for instance, we could easily do that by using the pen, drawing a big line, and then using the eraser to just go back in and dash that line for yourself. And if you messed it up, if you didn't like what you did, you always have the undo and the redo button available to you. So this is the type of tool that you can use. Give your students an image in your LMS or in an online training situation. Maybe it's asynchronous or synchronous. Give them a URL to an image, give them this drawing tool, and tell them to annotate whatever that thing is that you want them to annotate. They can then take a screen grab of that image and post it to the LMS, put it in your chat window, or share their own screen and let that be the way that you express their annotations to the class. Sometimes the anonymity is a little more useful, and so we have that possibility as well with the screen grab and the emailing type of option. So know that this tool is available to you, and if you need to load a different image in, feel free at any point. You can strip out the image URL and load an image, load a blank image, and it'll get you back to the where we started. Svet, I'm going to hand back to you now.
And we also wanted to show you a capability in the Zoom environment in which you can do labs or group activities. And for this, I'd like to turn the floor over to Andrea.
Thanks, Svet. Like Svet mentioned earlier, I'm an instructional designer and meteorologist with the COMET program. But in past years, I've also served as an instructor at several different universities teaching various online classes. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can still do group activities in the online environment, especially in the synchronous online environment. So research does show that instructor facilitation and overall course communication are significant predictors of effectiveness of online learning. And group and lab type work is especially important in the online environment because it still gives you an opportunity for people to share a diversity of ideas. It allows peer-to-peer communication, which otherwise may not be happening as much as it could in, say, the traditional classroom because they aren't there to see each other every day. And it also gives the quieter students a more comfortable learning opportunity in a small group type environment. So what we're going to try here in a minute is something that you can do in your various softwares, or if you're using Zoom, you'll get to see how to do it here, which is we're going to give you a task and then ask everybody to go into a breakout room and come up with some analysis solution or suggestions together. And then we'll bring back the breakout groups to discuss their results. So that's kind of the overall idea that anybody can implement in their classes. And we're going to try it together here in just a moment when Svet will break us into one of 3 different breakout groups. So breakout session 1 is going to be where you imagine that you are getting ready to teach a low-level survey course online, and we'd like you to come up as a group with some ideas for how you might use breakout rooms in that particular course. Breakout session 2, for those that go into that room, we'd like you to imagine that you're going to be teaching an upper-level theory course and brainstorm some ideas on how you might use breakouts there. And for breakout session 3, we're going to be imagining that we would be doing some sort of a weather analysis or maybe daily weather briefing and how you might use the breakout function in one of those sessions. And Svet will be divvying us up into these breakout rooms. I'll let him state about how long we're going to be in those rooms and then any indicators that you may see on screen.
Right. Thank you, Andrea. So in a few seconds, you will see this several windows like the one in front of you right now, and they will ask you to join into your breakout room. When you join a breakout room, you will no longer be hearing me. You will hear only audio inside the breakout room itself. And then we can work on the assignments that Andrea gave us for about 5 to 7 minutes, and then I will send everybody a note that lets you know it's time to wrap up and that I will be inviting you back to join the main session. All right, so you all should be seeing invitations to join the various breakout sessions right now. Go ahead and select them. Welcome back. A few folks are trickling back in. Welcome back to the main session. And I will turn it over to Andrea again.
Yeah, so I hope you all had an opportunity to have a little bit of discussion about, using breakout groups in Zoom or just in general across any software. There are multiple softwares out there that do have that feature available. The slide that I have up here, I'm not going to go over in detail, but these are just a few different examples of some of the ways that we have used breakout rooms for these various types of courses or topic areas in the past, as well as what other folks have used. You probably had your own ideas from the breakout groups themselves just recently. So those are going to be there to refer to. We'll also include those, and we'll jot down whatever the ideas were from the breakouts, and we'll include those in a handout that's going to be distributed after the webinar.
Thank you, Andrea. So as you have already seen in this synchronous session, we have the capability to ask our learners poll questions. And so far, we have asked fairly straightforward questions, but we also wanted to show you the capability of asking your learners to do some analysis by displaying a data product like this one on the screen, and then asking them to locate the jet streak based on this upper level convergence and divergence pattern. Now, poll questions like this one are particularly useful at the end of a section in your content, so that you and your learners can check their understanding, how well they have understood the ideas in the content up to this point. You can also use questions like this to spur discussion at the start of a section in your content as well. If you had assigned learners pre-readings or videos online, this is a great way to pose a question for them and then activate that prior knowledge that they're bringing with them to the session, and then spark their curiosity about the content that is coming up in the next few slides. So let's take a look at this polling question, and it is your turn to tell us, where is the jet streak based on this upper level convergence and divergence pattern? In a minute, you will see a question pop up on your screen, on your mobile device in Turning Point.
For those who are going to ask the question of what is showing on this map, the answer is the yellow solid contours are divergence, the red dashed contours are convergence, and the cyan colored wind barbs are ageostrophic flow.
Thank you, Brian. So go ahead and select whether you think the jet streak is located along line A, B, C, or D. And if you're not sure exactly where it is, or your screen is fuzzy because we selected the low resolution image, go ahead and guess anyway. We have a few more folks waiting to send in their responses. All right. Aha, very interesting. So we have most people voting for line C, and then a small number selecting line D. So those of you who selected line C, could one of you or a couple of you share with us your reasoning for selecting that? You can unmute your microphone. It's in the lower left corner of the Zoom window. We're not getting any volunteers. How about the other answer? Folks that selected that, could you share your reason for selecting it? All right, perhaps you can try typing it in the chat.
So I'll jump in here, Svet. I will admit I didn't actually answer this question because I don't have the Turning Point app installed on my phone yet. But for answer D, Brian mentioned that the yellow contours were divergence. And so knowing the 4-quadrant model of a jet streak, the left exit region usually has enhanced divergence and ageostrophic flow, as well as the right entrance region. So line D kind of bisects that, and that's the center of the jet streak, and you can see in the left exit region, you've got a core of yellow contours representing divergence, and the same for the right entrance region.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Okay, I will move the results off the screen. All right, so we have another poll question for you, and we have an annotation. This is where I get to exercise my superpower of deleting everybody's annotations from the screen. All right, so we have another poll question for you. This one is about the frequency with which you can interact with your students in a virtual classroom. So in a second, you will see the screen, you will see the poll question appear on your device, and you should be seeing it right now. How often do you think you should engage students in an interaction in a virtual classroom environment? And then you can select the best of these 4 answers. All right, excellent. Somebody's using the annotation tool. That's fantastic. I'll give folks just a couple of more seconds for those last-minute responses. And if you'd like to use the annotation tool, please feel free to do so. Excellent. All right, let's see. So we have folks are converging around answer B and answer C. So for those of you that selected answer B, could one of you please share your reasoning for selecting interaction with the learners every 8 to 10 minutes? And again, you can type it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon in the lower left.
Well, I thought that 2 to 5 minutes would be too often, so you would be trying to interact. It would be more a discussion than, I don't know, as a meeting with somebody actually giving the lecture. But 10 to 15 minutes is too long, so I chose the 8 to 10 minutes so that people wouldn't lose focus.
Thank you, Alexandra. Would anyone else like to share their reasoning for answer B? All right, how about those of you who selected answer C? Could you share your reasoning for it? All right. Well, in our experience, we have found that the optimal period of time is between 8 to 10 minutes. That seems to provide enough activity in a session that engages the learners periodically and attracts them back to the session. And it also depends on how complex your activity may be. Let's say that it may require your learners to solve it perhaps in 10 to 15 minutes of group discussion. So in that case, it is okay to spread it a little bit longer. But if you have activities that your students will be able to complete in 5 minutes, then it makes sense to increase the frequency of interactions to every 8 to 10 minutes. So it will depend on the activities that you have prepared for them. But in general, somewhere between 8 to 10 minutes is a good number to aim for.
Does your experience comes from different levels of student learners?
Yes.
Or particular kind of learners?
We have worked with every type of learner in the field of meteorology. We have worked with college students all the way to professionals taking professional development courses.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you for your question. All right, and before we move on, I will clear the annotations one more time. All right, now there are a number of collaboration tools to use out there for synchronous sessions, and I would like to turn the floor over to Brian again.
So as we've seen already, we're using Zoom right now, and there are some great tools in there that help you aside from just screen sharing. But if you are just worried about screen sharing and you do have the possibility to explore a bunch of different options, here are some of those. Zoom being what we're on right now. You may have used GoToMeeting or Cisco WebEx. Those are pretty popular. Google Hangouts has some nice features that make this easy for a lot of people who already have a Gmail address to just jump right into a video chat together. I haven't used it, but I've heard from many different Met trainers around the world that Big Blue Button and Blue Jeans are also quite useful web conferencing tools that can give you some of the possibilities that we've used today in Zoom. And also your learning management system at your university could also have some of these tools already. We've seen options in Canvas and Blackboard and some of the others that are out there that this is already available as well. In terms of collaborating with different students or having students collaborate with each other, you can use a lot of these different tools like Google Drive, documents, sheets, slides, all of those. Your learning management system itself also has chat functionalities and forums that can be useful for these types of situations as well. But if you need some different ideas about them, what about Slack and Trello and WhatsApp, Discord and Zoho? All of these are available at differing levels of collaboration engagement. Some of them have different levels of cost. Some you may actually have to pay for, but most of these that we've put up here are free for at least a basic version to be able to help people sort of put together some ideas. And the last thing that is useful to talk about, definitely to me, is the polling that we've already been doing helps keep learners involved. The 8 to 10 minutes that we've already said about, we're trying to keep that pattern in this presentation, and hopefully it is keeping your attention. If you wanted to try out some of these different tools, there's definitely some here, like Turning Technologies, which is the Turning Point app that we're using at the moment. Poll Everywhere is another great option that we've explored, and we've seen others using Slido and Socrative. There may even be more outside of these that fit more of your needs.
All right, thank you, Brian. And now we have yet another poll question for you. And this one is about the support that you may want to have as you are engaging in a synchronous session. So take a look at this question. What are the ways that assistants can support you in your synchronous session? And then in just a few seconds, you will see the question appear on your device. It should be there now. You can select all that apply. All right, the results are coming in. We'll give folks just a couple more seconds. Okay, excellent. Answers A, B, and C are all ways that you can ask your teaching assistants to support you when you're delivering a synchronous session. They can monitor and facilitate the chat, as you have seen so far in our chat window. You can also ask your assistants to set up the poll questions for you so that you can focus on delivering the content and engaging with the students. And you can ask them to facilitate some of the poll question discussions, as you have seen up to now. And if you do not have a teaching assistant, it's actually a great idea to invite one of your students in the course to be the assistant for that session, and then you can invite another one for the next session. It's a great way to generate engagement with the group overall. All right. We also wanted to show you a capability that is available to you for asynchronous engagement. When we deploy our synchronous courses online, we also ask the learners to complete COMET modules. And in those modules, your students will have a chance to practice and receive feedback about how well they're applying the knowledge from your synchronous session. And if you ask your students, they can set up an automatic email to go to you after every time they have completed an assessment on the COMET website, so that you will be able to track the modules that your students are completing, and also you can see their score in order to get a sense of how well they're doing with the content. Now, if you have introduced your students to real-time data access tools like the integrated data viewer, you can ask your students to continue using the tool after the end of the synchronous session and then post their analysis or perhaps a forecast on the bulletin board of the course, and then generate discussions around those analyses that way. And we also wanted to mention to you the idea about flipping the classroom. And for this, I'd like to invite Andrea back.
Thanks, Sven. So you may have heard the term flip the classroom before, and that generally refers to, having students do some of the lecture type or book reading work first before coming to class, and then using the class time more for discussion and application exercises. So in the online environment, it actually seems to lend itself pretty well to that. And on the screen here, you can see I've got something that I might, normally be doing in a classroom up on the board, which is this example of scale analysis. We're doing some derivations, things like that in the standard lecture classroom. But what you can do in the online environment is you can pre-record some of that type of material that really isn't going to be changing. That's your constant, I guess, is some of those things like derivations or other standard lecture slides that you might develop really for any topic. And you can make a short video of that or deliver it in some other way, have the students view that on their own, go through it, and then come to whatever synchronous session you might have. And that way your synchronous session can be devoted to touching on common themes or trouble points or other applications of that knowledge that you'd like to have them do. Another kind of bonus to doing some of this recording, pre-recording, is that if the students didn't quite understand something the first time through after they've watched you explain it or do the derivation, they can just start the video over and watch it again. So it is helpful in that way. You can see on this image in the lower left corner, it says Screencast-O-Matic. That's one software of many that you could use to do similar things. And we'll have a listing of video and audio recording software options on our handout after the webinar.